You ever made a wish and you really, really wanted something? Love, money, power, anything. And it goes terribly wrong? Well, you're in luck. There are two movies that have wishing involved. And there'll be some spoilers on one of these movies, and I'm going to be talking a lot, maybe obsessively, about one of them. Spoilers, let's go.
Fucking go! Let's fucking go.
Whoop, whoop. Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
We will watch your career with great interest.
You are such a kid.
This is where the fun begins.
It's showtime. And here we go.
Welcome into another edition of the Movie Geek Podcast. I'm your host, George T., and this is my review of two new horror films that have just opened in the last 2 weeks. We have Passenger and we have Obsession. And let's just say we're going to be talking about one of them a lot in this episode, and for good reason. The other one didn't live up to the expectations, and let's get to it. As the horror genre this year has just increasingly subgenred into many different subgenres, and it has been refreshing to see different takes on it. You had Hokum, that was really good, did not rely on the jump scares or the special effects. We had Undertone, which also relied on more audio here, audio scares than jump scares. So, Passenger looked pretty good from the trailers. We have, people driving in the middle of nowhere, and something is attacking them. And so at first it starts out pretty strong, but it just falls flat. Now the wishing part of this one, because they both have wishes in them. We have Tyler and Maddie. Tyler played by Jacob Skippo, and Maddie played by Lou LaBelle. They're a young couple that wish to enjoy a van life, just road tripping around the world, and they, they're exploring new places and just loving life until they become part of America, where there's a demonic entity that is terrorizing this local highway in the middle of nowhere. And the town folk know about this stuff, but they don't really fill everybody in until it really starts to escalate. Then all the research is done and everything else, and we find out that it is this cast out priest, and he's stalking his victims, and it's just it gets away from it. You think that it's this weird psycho killer kind of thing where um, it's the unknown or some beast or some kind, but unfortunately this one falls flat for me, because it does rely on jump scaring and the special effects. And I think with the expectations of certain horror movies coming out now, and after seeing Hokum and seeing Undertone, and then the next movie I'm going to talk about, Passengers, doesn't quite live up to that. The reviews have been mixed as well. It is scary though. I mean, you are driving in the middle of nowhere and things are happening. You're seeing apparitions, you're seeing things. And then eventually it chases you down and it terrorizes you. Again, Supernatural doesn't work quite that well, or in this regard, but um, and then like kind of the end where they, the only way to stop this is to find a church that's not on the map in the middle of the woods. Um, they come across it, and it's like, okay, but to get there, there are just dead bodies in um, like baggies, and they're just having to run them over just to get there. And then of course this uh, priest comes, and attacks Tyler, and then Maddie has to drive it all the way to the church, drives through the church, and then it takes a human form inside the church, and then she kills it. I mean, it's it's okay. But again, people will be scared because of being alone or being with somebody and in territory that you are not familiar with is very scary to me. For some people anyway. Um, but my expectations were a lot higher for this film, only because of the predecessors this year. And again, we've had a lot of horror movies. So, if you guys have seen this movie, let me know what you think of it. I definitely say it would be watchable, but it did not live up to my expectations of what I thought it was going to be from the trailer and from reading. All right, let's talk about this just amazing movie called Obsession. Um, a young director named Curry Baker made this movie. A young man with four people, basically as your main characters. You had Nikki, uh, Ian, Sarah, and Bear. Bear is played by Michael Johnston. Sarah, played by Megan Lawless. Ian, played by Cooper Tomlinson. And of course, Nikki, Indy Navarrete. Look, this movie was insane from the beginning. Have you ever wished to have somebody fall in love with you? Basically, that is Bear's obsession. Well, not really obsession, but he's a very shy guy, and he really kind of likes Nikki, even though Sarah, his best friend, is kind of into Bear. She's uh, not shy about letting him know that, but he kind of plays it off as he's, you know, they're good friends. But he does take a liking to Nikki, who doesn't really have the same level of interest, um, even though Bear is um, he gets very nervous around her. And Ian and him talk all the time about, hey, you should ask her out if you want to be with her. And he's like, well, I don't know. I mean, we're all kind of friends and everything. But he gets really shy. They have a trivia night together, and Sarah again shows interest in Bear. Ian sees it, everyone sees it amongst their friend group, and Bear is very stuck on Nikki. So uh, Nikki texts him and lets him know that she lost a crystal necklace. He figures, oh, this might be a good opportunity to maybe bring it up and buy her one and go from there. When he stumbles upon, little trinket called the One Wish Willow. It has warnings on the back of it, and it does say there could be consequences for one's wish. I think we've known this for a long time in movies and a lot of times in life. When you can wish something, if you're not very specific about your wish, it could come back to haunt you. And in this case, it is nightmarish. But for who? Norm, I'm going to say for whom? Because you may feel like it is a nightmare for Bear, or could it be a nightmare for everyone involved? Let's ponder that for a while. Anyway, Bear gets to take Nikki home. Very quiet car ride. Nikki tries to talk to him, and Bear just is like, "Oh, my cat died," and so on, and gotta put her down. His cat's name was Sandy. This is kind of relevant. Um, Nikki's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," whatnot. And she said, "Well, you had something for me," you said. And Bear um, said, "Yeah, I did, but I kind of forgot it at home." Because when Nikki got out of the car, he couldn't bring himself to tell her when she asked him if if he had feelings for her, and he couldn't tell her. But he could when he decided to use the One Wish Willow to make Nikki love him. Yeah, you cannot wish love on somebody. You just can't. You know it ends badly, and for all involved. So his somewhat obsession of Nikki becomes his nightmare, or both's nightmare, as he is sitting there debating on why he did that or why he couldn't bring himself to talk to Nikki. Nikki, who had already gone in the house, comes back out. But this is where this movie really separates itself. Curry made it a point to make Nikki very dark and lighting wise so that she wasn't present in a lot of scenes. So again, she's now standing on her porch, but you cannot see her. You only can see the outline of her. So you know she's there. She comes over to the car and says a lot of different things to Bear that make him say, what? What just happened? She wants to go home with him. She doesn't want to be at home alone. Her cat died. She didn't have a cat, as we'll find out. But she just wanted to be around him. And so as the night goes on, she's like, I gotta go to bed. Do you want to stay in the bed with me? Takes her shirt off, and Bear's like, oh God, like, what is going on here? And so throughout that whole thing, she wants him to be close to him. So she is showing him love and affection that he really desired. They kiss, and she freaks out. Well, why did she freak out for? You ask. We're going to get to that. So eventually they just lay in bed together and they go to work the next day. They all work together. Nikki, Ian, Sarah, and Bear. Ian and Bear have a conversation in the back while Nikki literally stares from the register the entire time. Bear said no, nothing happened, but she is acting weird and, really lovey toward me. I don't know why. Well, we all know why. Because you broke that one one wish Willow that you were supposed to give to her. Nikki again goes back home with Bear, and things start to escalate. There's a montage of them together, um, but strange things start to happen to Nikki, where she gets up in the middle of the night. She's standing in the corner, in a darkened corner, saying, when Bear starts to look around the room, he's looking around, and he's like looking over in the window and looking around, and she's over in the corner behind something, and she'll say something like, "Oh, I couldn't sleep. I just wanted to watch you sleep." And then she would change her voice and her tone, and then she would walk funny, and then she would go on to something else. Or the next time you see her, she has flowers in front of her face. So you can't see her face. You can only hear her voice and her tone. And why don't you love me the way I love you? And it's just freaking Bear out. There's also the scene where she's like, "You need to lay down next to me." And he starts to move, and she's like, "Why don't you love me? Stay!" And I mean, the whole theater was like, "Whoa, this is kind of crazy. This is nuts." So Nikki digs up Sandy and then gives her a memorial on Bear's floor. And Bear's like, "Well, why did you dig her up for?" And she's like, "Well, you threw away in the trash. Like, it probably should be a proper burial thing. And I wanted to bring her, and, I want you to feel loved," and so on. And it's your dead cat, and you loved your cat. And it just spirals. Eventually, there's there's a scene where Bear goes to work. He's talking to Sarah. Um, Sarah goes, "What's in the lunchbox?" And he's like, "Well, um, she made me a sandwich." So he bites into it, but he sees two pictures. Um, one, I kind of forgot what that one was, but there was another one of them together. And on the bottom, it says, "Not me." Starts to make you think, is Nikki being possessed by something? Well, possibly, because she's acting really weird. She's acting normal, and then she flips into something just evil, more or less, or what people would think is evil. Um, so Sandy looks at, I mean, Sarah looks at the back of the lunchbox and says, "Oh, there's a note here." And it says, "My little food critic. Um, uh, how does it taste? Like cat?" Something like that. I forget the words. And so Bear starts to think, "Oh no, what did she do?" He looks inside the sandwich and does not want the sandwich anymore because it looks like she chopped up Sandy and put it in his sandwich. That's just evil. That's just evil. So he gets home um, and tries to talk to her, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I want to do, I want to do better. I want to love you. I want you to love me." And then it just continues to spiral. Um, Bear the next day says he's got to go to work. She has the day off, and she's like, "Well, do you want me to come and stop by?" No, not really. But she had duct taped the entire door, so he couldn't get out. And he's like, um, "Nikki, what's wrong with the door?" And she's like, "Well, if you can't get out the door, you have to stay then, and we can love each other." And he's like, "Well, no, I gotta get going." And he gets out the door eventually. Nikki, now standing up, is smiling really strangely. But then she pisses on the floor. When he comes back from work and after talking to Ian, because Ian wants to invite just him to a guy's night, but he knows that Nikki's been, dragging herself around with Bear, and they can't be separated. When he gets back home, now Nikki's standing in the exact same spot, but now covered in puke, piss and puke all over the floor. And you're like, wow, what happened to her? So he tries to clean her up, tries to clean her up, tells her to take a shower. But then has one of those moments where he has to tell her that he has to leave and go to Ian's. And she flips out, starts crashing, boom, bang, and then kind of goes, oh, okay. And then she's like, well, do you want me to go? And he's like, no, no, no. Ian invited me. But then she mentions that Sarah was invited. So now he has to invite her. Now Ian's pissed because he was trying to keep Nikki away from everyone. She just had really gone off the deep end and was scaring people. And in the middle of this party, they're playing a Jenga type game where they have to do whatever is on the Jenga cube. So there is one point where Nikki has to do something. We don't know exactly what it is, but she starts to stand up and tells this really horrific, pornographic, like scene from a book, and it's scaring everyone. And then she kind of sits down and it's like, "Oh, that's from a book I'm writing." And everybody's like, okay. Bear's turn comes. Bear grabs one, and it says, "Kiss the person to your left." Well, wouldn't you know it, it's Sarah. And Sarah probably was looking forward to that until Nikki decided to stand up off camera, making a growling noise. She then walks into frame as you can see Sarah being completely like, what now? Bear sitting in the chair, looking like, what now? So Nikki walks over, drags her, drags the chair all the way back, and then plops down in front of him on his left so she can get the kiss. Sarah is devastated because Sarah really wants to kiss him. She really, really likes him. So that ends the night because then, as people started to talk about, oh, let's get some more drinks, Nikki flips the fuck out, starts saying things and so on, and then smashes a beer bottle into her face, come over and over and over again. And man, she's in a lot, she's in a lot of trouble. But again, it only gets worse as she continues to spiral and spiral and spiral. Eventually, how this ends, man, it is a wild ending. Uh, Again, I'm sorry for the spoilers, but I mean, just the movie itself is just crazy. But um, Nikki is fast asleep. Bear is sleeping with his eyes closed. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff in there. I'm just leaving out a lot of it because you need to see how ridiculously crazy it is. But Bear gets a text at 3 o'clock in the morning and says, well, Nikki's here. I can't really leave. But Sarah really needs to speak to him. So He somehow manages to sneak out, and he meets up with Sarah. And Sarah tells him, about, her plans, and, she really wants to get into the school um, for artistry, and she really wants to grow as an artist. And Bear is the most supportive friend she has. And again, she really just really likes him. And then there's smashed glass. Nikki found them together. They did not kiss, they didn't do anything. But Nikki begins to smash Sarah's face in with a brick, and she does it not once, not twice, but at least 10 times, smashing her face unrecognizable at that point. It is crazy. And then she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." And it's like, we need to go home, Bear. Um, Bear now realizes, like, he needs to figure something out. He goes back to the place in the morning while Nikki is at work and tries to find that one wish Willow. He finds them in a different spot. The guy behind the counter says, "Oh, you have regrets and you want to change your wish." Well, you can't do that. You need somebody else to wish it away or wish something different for you. Sure enough, he goes to Ian. Ian cannot believe the story Bear is telling him. He knows that something's wrong with Nikki. He thinks she's on drugs. She's admitted to using drugs in the past, but he thinks that she's just on some kind of bender and literally just maybe to get through the relationship with Bear, she's using. But he also finds out from Sarah, before he confronts Ian, that Ian was sleeping with Nikki. So Nikki wasn't going to love Bear. She wasn't. He liked her. He didn't know that Ian was sleeping with her. So Ian says, "Okay, I'll make a wish. And let's see if it works. I wish for $1 billion." And all of a sudden, $1 billion just rains in. Look, I want one of those. If that's the case, I want $1 billion. I can have more time to watch all these movies and all these shows and bring you content. I would love that. Bear's devastated. He now needs to figure out what he's going to do because Nikki's out of control. Now, Bear and Nikki had to hide the body of Sarah, obviously. Um, and somehow, some way, Nikki was able to drag Sarah into the house. When Bear gets back, he wants her to make the wish. He got another one. He bought a few. He now wants Nikki to make a wish, a different wish. And he's trying to explain it to her. Meanwhile, you see her, but you don't really see her. She's very dark. Again, it's the lighting thing to make her appear more demonic than she is. Or is she? However, the camera pans over to a side room, or the bedroom, where Sarah is now naked and cut up in the chair. Her hair is also gone. She's bald. Sarah is now just a lifeless corpse inside the home. How is Bear going to explain this to Ian eventually, if Ian were to stumble upon it? But Nikki, as she is standing there, is now dressed just as Sarah was dressed in the van, and her hair is knotted into Nikki's hair. And again, we don't really see the fullness of Nikki until very after. Ian comes knocking on the door because he found out that he um, wanted to confront Bear and Nikki over this, and Nikki is just berating Bear at this point. Now she is being seen in the light. Ian comes walking in, boom, gets shot. Nikki just didn't care about Ian. She wanted to find out why Bear didn't love her as much as she loved him. But it was just funny the way she just pointed the gun, not even looking at Ian, and just shot him right in the head. How she do that, we don't know. So now two friends are dead, and now Bear has to decide on what he's going to do. Uh, the options are to kill Nikki, kill himself, or make Nikki um, change the wish somehow. Well, he's not going to be able to convince Nikki of that. And he certainly wasn't going to kill Nikki because he loves her. So, what is the alternative? He suggests that they take a shower together, but when he decides to lock her out of the bathroom, she is uh, just banging the door. You can't see her doing it, but you see Bear very scared as to what he's going to do. He has the gun that Nikki had shot Ian with, and he's thinking about pulling the trigger, but he just can't figure out how to do it while she's banging on the door. Maybe with her head, maybe with her arm. Who knows? We don't know. So eventually, Bear decides to take the pills, overdose on the pills. However, as he starts to do that, Nikki is standing by the door, and he hears the One Wish Willow open and snap. She snapped it. As the wish takes over, Bear is now trying to spit out the pills that he had just downed, and he seems different. He walks out of the bathroom and walks over to Nikki, and they start to embrace and kiss. But that's when Nikki starts to freak out a little bit, and then Bear starts to have the overdose. He's starting to foam at the mouth and eventually dies. Camera pans to Nikki, who now has snapped out of whatever she was in and realizes that all three of her friends are dead. And she is screaming as the credits roll. And while the credits are rolling, she's still screaming. I'm telling you, it is a fascinating study in not only the way storytelling and the way it just comes together as a great horror story. Now, again, I pose the question, who was it more horrifying for? Was it her friends who saw her just go from happy Nikki to just utterly scary Nikki? Her nickname was Freaky Nikki. We don't exactly know why. She doesn't really talk about it, but that was a nickname she had. But she definitely tapped into the freaky, scary side of Nikki. But you know that she definitely turned to love Ian. I mean, Bear. So, was she possessed? But by what? I have a theory. So, when she came out as a black silhouette, and there's a lot of that in this movie where she's over in the corner and you can't really see her, except when she moves just ever so slightly. There's also at times where she's just kind of walking, that whole demonic thing. Was she actually trapped by some kind of a succubus demon? Or was she possessed by the soul of Sandy, the cat? And this is where this is very interesting because obviously cats love their owners for the most part, right? Nikki didn't like the way that the cat was buried. Was that because Sandy's soul, demon soul, whatever, went into Nikki and wanted to properly bury? But the whole getting cut up thing, I'm not sure about. But we know Nikki was possessed by something, some kind of a succubus, or just, you know, some kind of a you know, cat demon or something. I have that kind of feeling where, because the way she acted, not only in verbal, but just the way she just wanted to be comforted all the time, it's kind of cattish. Cats like to be cuddled. They like to be snuggled. Nikki wasn't that affectionate toward her friends, but she certainly wanted his affection. So could it have been Sandy's, you know, soul inside of Nikki, trying to, show that she was, in love with Bear because that was her person? I don't know. That was just my theory. But you gotta give Curry Barker a ton of credit here. This was a movie that is less than $1 million budget. It is going to cross $100 million. This is the first time in history, cinematic history, that this has happened to a movie. And do you want to know another one? The only movie this year to have gone up after its first weekend in not only money but ticket sale percentages. It went up 39% from its opening weekend, and it went up to from number 3 to number 2. And if Star Wars was not number 1 this weekend, or wasn't out this weekend, it was out, this coming weekend, and it was just a regular movie weekend, I have a feeling that Obsession would have been number 1, because this is the only movie anybody's talking about right now. And how low budget it was, but how great it was. And I'm telling you right now, it is 2 thumbs up and way up for me. Right now, Project Hail Mary and this movie, 1A and 1B. I really think that this this and Project Hail Mary will finish in my top 5. I can be surprised because obviously the big 3 are still coming for me: Odyssey, Spider-Man, and Doomsday. But who knows? I could be disappointed in one of those, and I'm hoping not to be. Trust me on that. Also, there's been other things that have come out since. Obsession will have a cinematic universe. Yes, you heard me right. It's a crazy universe. There will be more to come on this universe, but Corey Baker Barker has said during one of um, the um, Blumhouse premieres that his production, That's a Bad Idea, has come up with some ideas for a cinematic universe. What's going to be interesting about this cinematic universe is that there are going to be 5 other movies in this universe, a phase 1, so to speak. But he's not going to direct any of these. He's going to allow his friends and others that want to jump into this universe a chance to um, direct these movies. Will he have some? Will he have some input on it? Of course, this is his idea, and probably Blumhouse's idea, Fox Focus's idea. But here is the timeline. So there will be another one called Projection, and then Merit, Vanity, Optimization, and Patriot. I did find out a little bit about Patriot, and I really find this interesting. But it will be out in 2030. The idea around this is a MAGA family is shown what true patriotism is. That fascinates me in a lot of ways. So as we get through and more explanation as to what protection is, merit, vanity, and optimization. Well, you can assume things like vanity is going to be about, again, vanity, how people look, merit, how one um, focuses their ideas and that sort of thing. Protection. Well, that could be many things. Protecting children or protecting themselves or protecting, loved ones or something. Optimization. Not entirely sure, but again, there is this little, start to an interesting universe, to say the least. And again, I'll have so much more information as we get to it. But Projection is not coming out until 2027. Merit is coming out in 27. Uh, Vanity is coming out in 20. Actually, Merit's coming out in 28. Uh, Vanity's coming out in 28 as well. Uh, actually, yes, 28. Optimization is coming out in 29, and Patriot is coming out in 2030. So it's not going to be a 6-year journey. It's only going to be a couple of years. Will the timelines move up? Who knows, depending on how fast they get done. Um, but these will all be low budget movies. And as I've said on a few shows, low budget horror films are winning the box office this year. Not because they're making the most money, um, clearly, but they are making people talk and making people really see that horror is just not horror anymore. You're not your slashers. You're not your Friday the 13th and your Nightmare on Elm Streets and the blood and guts and all that other stuff. We've got horror this year that has not relied on that. Again, I said it before, undertone, audio, people who get scared of bumps in the middle of the night, or being alone in a house and hearing creaking, or the wind blowing outside, making noises. Hokum, um, seeing the bad side of people, as we saw in the movie. And then this one, really wanting to be loved by somebody and going a little too overboard because you weren't specific enough in your wish. Love is such a complex thing. We all know this. We've all been in love. We've all fallen out of love. We've loved one person. We've loved another person. It's just, love stinks. I've said that on Valentine's Day many times when I do my Valentine's Day specials. So, what did you guys think of this movie if you've seen it? If you haven't seen it, I'm sorry if I ruined it for you, but you must see it. It is a must see. Must, must, must see. Alright, that is all the time I have for right now. I hope you do enjoy this episode. I hope you enjoy more episodes and I will see you all at the movies.
You like that, baby? Let him know where I came from, yeah!
See you next time. Bye.
Waiting for you. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
That's